Hello everyone, this is Sarah Profit with Ivy Tech Online, and today I'm going to talk to you about Blackboard tools and alignment. So let's look at our objectives for this presentation. Our objective is given course competency statements, map learning activities and assessments to appropriate tools in Blackboard. So what we'll be learning about today is how to match a given learning activity or assessment to the appropriate tool in Blackboard, and how to decipher between good and bad examples of tool selection. So as we jump into this presentation, some words to look for whenever you're thinking about Blackboard tools vary depending on the tool that you're using. So for blogs, you may see some verbs like collaborate, discuss, or reflect. For journals, they're going to be a little bit different. You may see some verbs like self-reflect, self-assess, discuss, or explain. For discussion boards, that's a little bit more straightforward. You would see discuss, share, or explain, or something along those lines. For groups, you're going to see some verbs like collaborate, brainstorm, work together, things like that. And then wikis are going to be verbs like share, collaborate, or illustrate. Now, obviously, these are not all encompassing, but these are just some words to kind of think about as you're looking at different tools in Blackboard. So we'll start with our first example. This is an example of a blog in Blackboard. So the objective / competency statement says, relate the historical experiences of people with disabilities to other minority groups. Now, this verb relate is not discuss, explain, or any of those more straightforward verbs, but it is possible to use a discussion when you are relating topics together. So that verb does make sense for this type of tool. So you'll see the blog symbol is listed on your screen in this picture, and then there's some verbiage here for students to complete this activity. So that's an example of a blog and how that assignment is aligned with a competency statement. So here's an example of a journal activity in Blackboard. The objective / competency statement says, recognize similarities across cultural groups in their experience with oppression as evidenced by discussion of at least 2 cultural groups which have experienced a history of discrimination and negative treatment. So that's a really long statement, but you'll see one big word that's pointed out in there is the word discussion. So there is going to be some discussion happening, but as you will see, this is a self-reflection on a topic that is a little bit more private for some students. So this assignment actually was done in a way to allow students to not feel like they were putting their opinions out there and may offend someone or something like that. So there's a discussion happening in this assignment, but it is only between the student and their instructor. So you can see these the information down here that describes what they're supposed to do in this activity. And you can kind of read through that. And also you'll see it's very clear that this is a self-reflection. Here's an example of a discussion board assignment where the objective / competency statement says, discuss the validity of psychological assessments. So this is pretty straightforward. The verb discuss is used directly in the competency, so that one is aligned very well. Let's look at an example of a groups assignment. So here the objective / competency statement is design programs utilizing class object definitions. So here you can see this is what a group assignment looks like in Blackboard with the group icon. And then there's information down here for the students. So they're going to be designing a program and they're working as a group to do it. So this assignment essentially could be either an individual assignment or a group assignment, and this developer chose to do this assignment as a group. So that one is also aligned. Here we have an example of a wiki assignment in a course. So the objective / competency statement says, create a short advertisement for a college or community event. So the word create tells the student that they're going to be doing something, but it's an advertisement that's probably going to use some sort of multimedia. So a wiki is the ideal tool for that type of assignment because images are easily added into a wiki and it can be shared with a whole class or a small group. So multiple students can be editing that document at the same time. So this one is also aligned very well. Here's an example of poor alignment. So now we're going to look at the opposite end of the spectrum. So we just saw an example of well-aligned tools to competency statements and activities in the past few slides. Now we're going to look at an example of poor alignment. So here the objective competency statement is match different learning styles to their respective descriptions. So we think that there's going to be matching happening here. But down below in this image, you'll see this is a discussion board assignment. So when we're thinking about matching something, you would imagine maybe a test question that had some matching items listed, but here we have open-ended questions that are being asked to the student. So this verb match does not align with a discussion activity. So that's why this is an example of poor alignment. I'm going to show you this slide again, some words to look for. I think this is really helpful to capture and kind of keep it for yourself somewhere to refer to. But this is also always something to really think about whenever you're either designing a course or looking at a course that's already in existence that you may want to work on improving. So here we have all of our different tools in Blackboard, and then the verbs that you may see in the competency statements for these, or if you are writing your own competency statements, you might think about using some of these if you're wanting to look at alignment between Blackboard tools and activities. So some tips and tricks to kind of take with you and go on as you're designing, developing, or mentoring a course. When you're writing course competency statements, think of the assessment. So always have the end in mind. And sometimes that can be difficult, but it is really helpful to think about what the student's actually going to be doing whenever you're writing your course competency statements. Number 2 is when you're building a Blackboard, remember all of the Blackboard tools that are at your disposal. So you always are going to think about how you can vary the assessments for your students. And if you get stuck with anything, obviously your assigned instructional designer will always be there to help you. Number 3 is to remember to look at your competency statements several times while you're building in Blackboard. The reason for that is on some occasions the time between SAM building, which happens at the very beginning of the development process, and Blackboard production, which happens a little bit later in the development process, can get to be a bit lengthy. So you'll want to make sure you go back and look at what you did right for your competency statements and make sure that you are showing alignment in Blackboard. Those are all the tips and tricks that I have for you today, so hopefully you enjoyed this presentation. If you have any questions or concerns, the contact information for you to reach out is listed in the course. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.